Today's learning target is I can multiply fractions and mixed numbers. Today we're going to be multiplying fractions, and I think that multiplying fractions is easier than adding and subtracting, because when you added and subtracted, we had to have our denominators the same. When we multiply, we don't need to. So to multiply fractions, we're simply going to multiply the numerators. So in this case, we have 1 times 1 equals 1, and then we multiply the denominators. So 2 times 3 is 6. And our last step that we're going to look at here is we're going to simplify. And 1/6 is always already in simplest form, so there it is. So in this problem, I'm going to multiply a whole number, so 2 times 3/4. So the first thing I want to do is write my problem out. Remember, 2 as a fraction is 2 over 1, 2 wholes, times 3/4. Now I multiply my numerator, so 2 times 3 is 6. And now I multiply my denominators. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we know our last step is we always want to simplify. So I see both of these are even numbers, so I know I can divide both of these by 2, which gives me 3 halves. Now I see here that I have an improper fraction, and remember, an improper fraction is when the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So just like when we added and subtracted fractions, we want to turn improper fractions into mixed numbers. And we do that, remember, by dividing out, and then we're going to find the remainder. So let me remind you how to do that. We're going to do 3 divided by 2. Remember, the bottom number always goes to the outside of what we're dividing. So we have 3 and we're dividing by 2. Okay, and this, when I divide this out, is going to give me 1 with a remainder of 1. So this number right here tells me how many wholes I have. So it's 1 whole, and the remainder is what's going to be the numerator. And the denominator, if you remember right here, is already halves. So it's going to be 1 and 1/2, which is the mixed number for this 3 halves. So now that we know how to multiply fractions, I'm going to show you a trick that you can do today to make your job easier. So if you look on the right-hand side here, I've put the simplify step as the first step. Okay, now the benefit to doing that, I can simplify, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But when I simplify, my numbers become smaller, which is helpful, because right now if I multiply this, I'm going to get 6 for the numerator and 56 for the denominator. So 656, then now I have to simplify. It gets a little tricky. Instead, let's simplify right now. So here are my numerator numbers, here are my denominator numbers. So when I simplify, I just want to take one of these numerator numbers and see if I can divide it by something that would be the same as one of these denominator numbers. So if I take a look here, here's an even number, here's an even number. One numerator, one denominator. It doesn't matter that they're not on top of each other, as long as one is a numerator and one's a denominator. I could divide both of these by 2. So to do that, all right, 2 divided by 2 becomes 1. 8 divided by 2 becomes 4. Notice how I'm showing it here. Now I look to see, is there any other way that I could simplify? And I don't see another way to simplify. So now I'm ready to multiply the numerators. 3 times 1 is 3. And my denominator, 7 times 4 is 28. And now I double check. Do I need to simplify any more? And I look at that, and 3 is the only number that would go in here. 1 and 3, I should say. And 3 does not go into 28, so that is simplest form right there. Let's take a look at another example here. So here's my fractions that I'm going to multiply. Step 1 is simplify. All right, when I look at this, I see a 3 here in the denominator and a 6 in the numerator. I could simplify those by dividing each of these by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Ooh, now take a look here. I also see a numerator here of 2 and a denominator of 8. So both are even. That means I can divide both by 2. If I did that, I'd get 1 and 4. Now take a look. I could actually do one more time here. So here's a 2 and here's a 4. They're both even. So I could divide both by 2 and I get 1 over 2. And now I'm ready to multiply. 1 times 1, my numerators, that's 1. And I have 2 times 1 here is going to be 2. And there's my fraction. And the last step is I look to simplify, but this is in simplest form. Let's take a look here at this problem. We have a whole number that we're multiplying by a mixed number. So the first thing we want to do is let's take this whole number and let's change it to a fraction. So I know that 4 wholes is the same as 4 over 1. Okay, and now we're going to multiply that by this mixed number. Now, if you remember from years past, to get a mixed number like this into an improper fraction, we're going to take and we're going to multiply the denominator by the whole number and add the numerator. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in, we're going to do 2 times 3, and then we'll add that numerator. So when you're doing a problem like this, you can put these signs in to remind yourself. So I take 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So this as a mixed, or as an improper fraction, is 7 halves. And now I'm ready to multiply. So step 1 is to simplify. Okay, let's see, I have an even number and an even number. That means I can divide both of those by 2. And that would get me 1 here and 2 here. Now I don't see anything else that I can simplify here. So I'm going to take 2 times 7 is 14. And my denominators, I'm looking at 1 times 1 is 1. So I get 14 over 1, which is the same as 14 wholes. So there's your answer.